Hi, Duncan. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, good to be with you.
Thank you. So the University of Manchester is quite committed to the principles of open research. Can you explain a bit about what open research is and why is it important for us to integrate it into our work?
So, open research is basically the idea that we make our research open and freely available to as many people as possible with as few barriers as possible. And that's a really powerful idea. We're a public university, and the idea that we're going to make our research, make our ideas, our concepts, the results, the outcomes of our research publicly available is really powerful. I think it really speaks to our values as an institution. But it turns out it's also important because it's a great way of generating impact, because the more people who can use your research, the more people who can get access to your research, the more likely they are to use it. And I think one of the big challenges for us as an institution is to really speed up the point between discovery and impact. And open research helps us do that. I think the final thing is, I think it's something that really speaks to, why universities are so important right now in particular. We've got so many challenges in the world, and so many of those challenges involve really complex, multidimensional problems. I mean, you work in cancer research, and you're probably working with all kinds of different researchers, but there's aspects of the humanities and social sciences that will be critical probably to, the application of policy around cancer prevention or whatever. So how do we create more collaboration? And how do we create more multidisciplinary teams to really advance that work? Again, open research helps build collaboration because more people can access each other's results in research, and that builds, I think, better teams as well.
And what do you think the university is doing to implement and support open practices?
Yeah, so I've been really impressed. I mean, having been here now for 7-8 months and participated in an open research forum not long after I started, I'm really impressed. We have an open research office, open research kind of commitment that I think is second to none in the sector. I mean, I think Manchester really is sector leading in this space, and there's a real institutional commitment. I mean, Colette has made that clear since I arrived, but the team clearly has, been assembled to deliver on our ambitions for open research. So, we are absolutely committed to making open research a big part of who we are as an institution and in our research and in our sort of education ambitions. And it's going to be important to the strategy as well. But I think the things we're doing now are, first of all, we have a team to support people to do more open research. We have funding for open research. We have open research fellowships, so people can get a bit of time bought out to work on open research projects that might, help us learn more or help them progress it. And we have a lot of support and training for people to understand what open research means. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I think often colleagues don't quite understand what it means and what the consequences are. And then, of course, we've got a whole bunch of people working on open research policy and how we can influence government, funding agencies, and the people who support research to make open research more possible, if I can put it that way, in the sector as a whole. So I think the university is doing a lot. I mean, we've still got ambitions to do more, but there's a lot going on.
Good.
Hi, Duncan. So the Research Excellence Framework, the REF, is really strategically important for the university, financially and reputationally. Just wonder your thoughts on how open research feeds into the REF and why it's important for Manchester there.
So we know that research funders are increasingly referencing open research as part of the conditions of funding us. It's a bit of a mixed picture in terms of what that means practically, but we know it's increasingly important for our funders. And certainly there are charities, think of the Wellcome Trust, for example, and they have a very strong position on open research, and other big funders do as well. But obviously the REF is changing, so the next REF is in 2029. That feels to me very comfortably far away, but of course it isn't. So we need to start getting ready now. And one of the things that's changing in the REF 29 is a greater emphasis on what used to be called, I think, environment, right? And the language is changing a bit, but the score for that is going to become higher. So it'll become more important to our overall assessment score. And of course, as you said, we get funded on the basis of our performance in REF, and also reputationally it's massive, right? People really do pay attention to it in the UK and globally. And one thing that I know is changing as part of 29 REF is a greater emphasis on our open research commitment and our open research activities. So not only is it a good thing to do, but strategically and tactically it's going to be important for us to really have a clear approach and have the right support in place for our research community so that we can do as well as possible in the REF.
And just stemming on from Cahal's question, would you mind explaining a bit about what REF is?
Yeah, so I mean, REF is the way that the UK government assesses the quality of the research universities produce. And in a nutshell, we're assessed on our research outputs, the publications, the outputs of our various research activities. That's then ranked and scored by panels of peers and experts, and then we're awarded a sort of score on the basis of that assessment. And then that feeds into the funding we receive for the government for our research. And then, of course, there's a kind of league table phenomena that comes on the back of it, and we're all sort of ranked against each other. So it's really important. It's not just a reputational thing, and reputation is important. That's how students and families, for example, sometimes, decide whether to come study here, or maybe, you as a PhD student might think, that's a really strong university. I can see their REF scores are really high in my area. But also it has real funding consequences. So there's real cash attached to how well or how not so well we do in the REF outcomes.
And how can open research contribute to achieving our vision of Manchester 2035? And what can everyone do to sort of participate in achieving that?
Yeah, so as you know, we're in the middle of our Manchester 2035 strategy process. Very exciting. We're in the middle of phase 2 of that process. We've had, I think, over 5,500 colleagues, students participate one way or another. So that's really exciting. We want to keep that going. And we've identified a number of domains or themes that we're exploring. And I think in each one, or in almost all of them, our commitment to open research really, I think, will contribute enormously to what we're trying to achieve or what's emerging as some of the big themes. So for example, in research, we've talked a bit about that already, but if one thing we need to do is accelerate the impact of our research, right? We need to accelerate the point between discovery and impact. Then open research is a very powerful way of doing that. The more people can access our research, understand our research, use our research, the easier it is for them to do that, the greater the impact we're likely to have. So I think that's something that is really emerging as an exciting theme. Also, if you think about, the role of us as a university that takes social responsibility really seriously, and we're trying to think, what does it mean to be a socially responsible university, at this point in time in the 21st century? And again, making our research open to all, free and open and accessible to everyone. Potentially, that's the dream, right? That is a very powerful way of embodying our commitment to social responsibility. We're not putting it behind paywalls, we're not hiding it, we're not, charging enormous amounts of fees for it, we're getting it out into the world, making a difference. So it's another way of thinking about what it means to be a socially responsible university. And I also think it's relevant to thinking about, our students along two lines. I mean, for our undergraduates, being in an environment where that's something that we're committed to, this idea of open research, hopefully they get access to research in ways that maybe we haven't thought about before. Given the platforms we're going to build, the resources we're going to build, if we make it easier for our own students to access research, then I think that's going to enhance their education, but also it's going to give them a sense of what it means to work in that kind of environment. And then for PhD students, I mean, you might have some thoughts about this. I think we're training the next generation of research leaders, the next generation of, of our clinicians and teachers and doctors, in an environment where we're valuing open research, where you're contributing to an open research environment. And not only do you benefit for your own research, but you are actually putting your work out into the world in new and exciting ways. And we know that open research approaches actually create more opportunities for people's research to be cited and to be used. So hopefully it enhances our PhD students and postdocs' careers as well. And then finally, we're thinking a lot about partnership and how we become a university that is a valued partner for whether it's government or companies or non-governmental organizations, community associations. And I think embracing open research means, I think, more likely that the best partners will want to work with us because they know that we really believe in that principle and they can get enormous benefits from working with us. So I think at every single point in the strategy process, there's a role potentially for open research to play.
So research culture is becoming increasingly important or recognised in the sector. To the idea that how we do research is as important as the outcomes of it.
Yeah.
And that being a key component of kind of good research and research excellence in itself.
Yeah.
So I wonder what your thoughts are on kind of what good research culture looks like and what you'd like research culture to look like at Manchester over the next 10 years?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, we want to be a really high-performing research culture, right? We want people to be producing the best possible work that they can do in whatever field or domain they work in. So that goes without saying. But I think, interestingly, a high-performing research culture increasingly is going to be one that is more open, more collaborative, more inclusive, more diverse, and more, I think, aligned with some of the principles that we've been talking about in relation to open research. Because we know that we need to, increasingly be a lot more collaborative in the research we do, just because many of the problems we're trying to tackle require greater collaboration and at earlier points in the research probably than we've ever imagined, right? Whether you're in the humanities or in the sciences. I mean, think about, for example, the relationship between, the humanities and the sciences around things like AI. So of course there are some foundational problems in computer science, in mathematics that we've got to grapple with, but we also know that we've got to find a way to enable people to trust the AI tools that are being developed, that we've got to understand the impact that these algorithms are going to have on our society. So there's never been a more important time for us to find ways to bring disciplines together, which requires collaboration, which requires a kind of willingness and openness and an inclusive kind of mindset and organizationally to bring teams together. So I think that's the kind of research culture we want. We want people to be able to move across disciplines and barriers, not be constantly confronted by silos or sort of walls in between them. So I think that's really important. I think the second thing that open research encourages also is a research environment that really prizes research integrity. And there is a bit of a challenge that we've got right now around the reproducibility of results and people trusting science, right? There's a lot of counter-cultural forces out there saying, don't trust institutions like universities. And one thing open research can do is build trust with the communities. We're saying, here's our metadata, here's our results, here are the things that didn't work. And this is all something that you can, in a sense, go up on a platform or download and look for yourself, right? So that's a really powerful rebuttal of people who say, oh, universities are just elite institutions, in cahoots with other elite sort of actors in our society. When we say, no, actually, here it is. Here's the evidence, or here's the data. Here's the outcomes for you to actually explore. So I think that also then contributes to a research culture in which we really value integrity. We really value that commitment to the public good. And then finally, I think, like I said, I think it builds a certain kind of openness and willingness to explore new things, right? I think we've all probably had the experience of working in a research group or in a department or a school where that's really a really exciting part of being in that community. People are talking and asking questions and coming at problems in different ways. And I think the more you encourage collaboration and openness, the more likely you are to have that kind of culture, I think. So hopefully it's not the only thing that builds a great research culture, but it could be one of the important things.